They advertise sales, but in reality, the price has been cheaper or the same in the past. So the sale they advertise is actually not a discount, but to consumers, it's perceived as one. Then it jumped up to $130 right before Black Friday, and now is back at $100 as a Cyber Monday sale. Okay. Hey y'all, it's Sarah Maria. Welcome back to my channel where we break down the problem of consumerism and its intersection with other systems of oppression, taking a deep dive into how we can be more conscious consumers and people in general. It is that time of year again, the holiday season, where maniacal material overconsumption soars in the name of festivity, gift giving, and holiday sales. Only in a hyper-materialistic society would we celebrate a holiday centered around thankfulness and gratitude for life, for family, for community, and then right after, sometimes even throughout the prior week, we go out and shop for material things to give us that addictive surge of happy hormones and a temporary sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. Only in a hyper-materialistic society would we commodify holidays and turn them into money-making marketing schemes, which is exactly what we see in the rise of what's now called Black Friday. Every single company jumps on the opportunity that Black Friday presents by advertising limited time sales and huge money-saving opportunities. And many consumers use these Black Friday sales to get a head start on gift shopping for Christmas, yet another holiday turned into a materialistic commodity. So what's the problem? If there are sales for things we want, why shouldn't we go out and get them for cheaper while we can? Well, 3 reasons. 1, the surge of consumption has devastating effects on the environment and on laborers. 2, the sales are not true limited time discounts. They are nothing more than yet another marketing scheme to get you to hand over your money. And 3, partaking in the consumption craze leaves you with an insatiable desire for material acquisition. The more you chase after the acquisition of material goods, the more psychologically dependent you become on that acquisition. It's a losing game all around. Let's get into it. So when did we start participating in Black Friday, and why is it called that? I'm gonna tell you the widely discussed myth first because it will help us understand the psychological manipulation that goes on in marketing. Then I'll tell you the truth. So historically, businesses use these 2 terms, in the red and in the black, to refer to their profit margins. In the red means a business is operating in a financial deficit, and in the black means a business is making a profit. It was, and maybe in some circles still is, accepted that the origin of Black Friday is in reference to the fact that businesses are operating in the red and not making profits the whole year until the start of holiday shopping in November, around and after Thanksgiving. So they said that's why it's called Black Friday. But that's actually a myth, and the basis of that myth is the idea that businesses need the surge of consumption to stay afloat. And on a larger scale, it perpetuates this idea that widespread consumption of goods is necessary for keeping the economy healthy and thriving. Of course, it is true that consumption of goods and services is necessary for our economy because we live in a market economy under capitalism that is quite literally dependent on consumer demand and business supply. However, as we progress into the later stages of capitalism, we have become living proof of the old adage that too much of anything is a bad thing. While they would like us to believe that consumption is necessary and beneficial, too much consumption is the exact opposite, unnecessary and harmful. So the real origin of the term Black Friday started in the 1950s and 60s in Philadelphia, where there would be a very popular annual Army versus Navy game the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Huge crowds would come into the city from the suburbs to attend the game and also to start their holiday shopping. Philadelphia police started using the term Black Friday to describe the chaos of traffic jams, accidents, shoplifting, and other things caused by the huge and sudden influx of people into the city. The term quickly began to catch on in Philadelphia, and business owners even tried to rebrand it to Big Friday, hoping to remove the negative connotation, but obviously that never really caught on. Fast forward almost 20 years, the term Black Friday started to spread to the rest of America in the late 1980s, and it was then that business owners started to perpetuate the red to black profit margin myth obviously to create a positive connotation around consumption in order to induce people to come out and shop. In a 1992 monthly labor review by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, Maureen Boyle Gray writes, "The 1980s have been described as a fast-paced, free-spending decade, a decade of economic confidence and robust consumer spending." Gray explains that the rise in consumer spending was evenly divided between goods and services. The popular goods being produced and sold at the time were things like microwave ovens, video cassette recorders, and personal computers. The popular services being sold at the time were childcare services, housekeeping services, and purchasing meals outside the home, aka eating out. This was also a time period where more and more women were starting to enter the workforce, so it makes sense that consumption of convenience-related goods and services was increasing during this time. So my point is that the time period that saw the evolution of Black Friday into a consumption-oriented event is the same time period of economic confidence and robust consumer spending. In this case, I guess we don't really know which came first, the chicken or the egg. We don't know if Black Friday caused this robust spending or if it was a product of it. But we do know that Black Friday as a concept is pure, unadulterated consumerism from its conception until now. Today, Black Friday is one of the busiest shopping days of the year, with an estimated 130 million people going out to shop, and that's not even including the people that will shop online. This figure is estimated by a survey done by the National Retail Federation, the NRF. CBS News writes, "Consumers are forecasted to break spending records in 2024, with the average person expected to spend a little over $1,000, up 14% from last year, according to data from Retail Me Not." The NRF also predicted that winter holiday spending this year, in just November and December, will be around $980 billion. This amount has been steadily increasing over the past 20 years, as you can see by this graph. To put this amount of money into perspective, earlier this year in April, the Volcker Alliance, which is a nonprofit organization, held a briefing regarding America's water crisis. They say that the EPA estimates that around $900 billion will be needed over the next 20 years in order to properly address the nation's water infrastructure needs amidst a changing climate. This includes upgrading our drinking water, stormwater, and wastewater management systems. So the EPA needs $900 billion over the course of 20 years to make sure we have clean drinking water and proper management of stormwater. The retail industry makes over $900 billion in just 2 months during holiday shopping. I'm really struggling to grapple with the fact that retail consumption brings in enough money in just 2 months that could hypothetically be used to improve our entire water system and infrastructure, according to the EPA. I'm not saying the retail industry has an obligation to provide that money for that service. I'm just putting that amount of money into perspective. More than 2 million Americans today don't have access to clean drinking water. More than 1 million don't have the plumbing necessary to flush a toilet. And nearly a quarter of US households that are built on private wells have contaminants in their water like arsenic or E. coli. So simply put, the retail industry makes enough money in 2 months to be able to address and probably eradicate those issues if they wanted to. They have so much financial power, but what does it get used for? To line the pockets of wealthy business owners and ultimately to get fueled back into the continued production of consumer goods. I understand that issues regarding public welfare and infrastructure are much more complex and nuanced, but my point is that we are spending more and more money every year on unnecessary material things, especially during holiday season, and yet we still see so much inequity in so many aspects of our society, largely based on, in my opinion, improperly allocated funds. They got money for wars but can't feed the poor. They got money for large-scale exploitative and extractive production of consumer goods but can't help people get clean drinking water. A big reason why the last 20 years have seen such a drastic increase in consumer spending during the holidays, and just in general, is largely because of online shopping and now social media. 91% of Americans ages 18 to 49 say they have bought something online with their smartphone. We've all done it, being real. And 32% say they buy things online with their smartphone at least once a week, according to Pew Research Center. They go on to say, as Americans reach for their digital devices for online shopping, social media has also emerged as a way for people to promote products, share tutorials, and create content in the hopes of influencing people's taste, purchases, or opinions. This specifically refers to younger consumers, with 72% of 18 to 29-year-old social media users saying they follow influencers, and 41% saying they have purchased something after seeing an influencer post about it. Another consequence of the digitized marketplace is that Black Friday has now become a global event. While it originated in the US, in 2024, Black Friday will be officially observed in 129 out of the 195 recognized countries globally. Only Christmas, celebrated in over 160 countries, and Ramadan, observed in more than 120 countries, have similar levels of international participation. Please understand how insane it is that Black Friday is celebrated as much as ancient global religious holidays. Black Friday, which is entirely built on consumerism. It's almost like consumerism has now become a global religion, as people practically worship material goods. Speaking anecdotally, I can see in my own personal life the pervasive nature of Black Friday and holiday shopping. For me, in the past, I definitely used to buy into Black Friday sales, perusing my favorite websites and re-upping on skincare and makeup products that I know I like, even taking advantage of the sales to try new products that I've heard friends talk about or that I've seen on social media a few times. Now I obviously view things very differently, and I'm boycotting practically all unnecessary consumption, but the majority of people all around me, both in real life and online, are talking about the things they want to buy on Black Friday and talking about how they already have their cart ready full of stuff. And I'm not blaming them or judging them. We truly have been indoctrinated to be the perfect consumer, the consumer that buys a lot and thinks very little. The record-breaking levels of global consumption that we see throughout the holiday season lead to a massive carbon footprint, a huge increase in waste production, extremely stressful working conditions for employees, and large-scale manipulation of the consumer base. According to data collected by Waste Managed, 2023's Black Friday was expected to emit 429,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions just from product deliveries. On top of that, the delivery trucks carrying these hundreds of thousands of products will also contribute to traffic congestion during an already congested time when many people are traveling for the holidays. In the larger scheme of things, the carbon footprint from the delivery of these goods is nothing in comparison to the production of them. The most popular Black Friday items are electronics, and according to this report, the electronics industry accounts for 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions, which is higher than that of aviation at 2.5%. There are around 30 million flights in a year, so the carbon emissions of the electronics industry is nearly double that of the 30 million commercial airliner jets flying all around the globe. Of all tech companies, Samsung and Amazon emit the most greenhouse gas emissions by far, with Samsung at 20.1 million tons and Amazon at 16.1 million tons. Clothing is also a very popular Black Friday item, and the clothing industry accounts for 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions, which is more than all international flights and maritime shipping combined. This is largely because the majority of clothing produced today is made of synthetic fibers like polyester, which is heavily oil dependent. On top of the carbon footprint, it's estimated that around 80% of Black Friday purchases will get thrown out after little to no use. This is because the design of Black Friday is to induce spontaneous overconsumption, meaning that consumers are more likely to buy first and think later, out of fear that they'll miss out on a good deal or that something will get sold out. This massive generation of waste contributes to the 92 million tons of textile waste and the 62 million tons of electronic waste that is produced globally every year. Let's take a look into how this senseless waste affects communities all around the world.
Even in the center of Accra, these huge trash heaps have been growing for more than a decade. They're made up mostly of discarded clothing and are around 20 meters tall.
Look at all this. We don't need it. It doesn't have use.
Most of these things that we find when we are cleaning the river, number one, clothing. You continue to dig deeper, you'll just find clothing.
El problema es que solamente un 15% de eso es lo que se vende como segunda mano. El 85% viene de Children as young as 10 toil and sometimes live amid this toxic garbage. The UN figures we produce around 50 million tons of electronic waste or e-waste every year. And this is not what's supposed to happen to it.
But it did not take long for the authorities to find that processing of illegally dumped e-waste is still going on.
Then we also have to talk about the effect that the Black Friday consumption craze has on retail, warehouse, and delivery employees. For context, more than 4 million people in the US work in retail sales, and less than 5% of them are unionized. The Guardian published a piece talking about some of the challenges faced by retail employees during the holiday season. A retail employee at an REI in Chicago said, "People are working longer hours, often understaffed for the amount of traffic. Rarely, if ever, is there any kind of holiday bonus. On top of being overworked during the holidays, there is also the expectation that workers remain available to operate the store at a time that everyone wants to take it easy and be with family." They then added, "We are being asked to prioritize a business over our personal lives, and that business would never prioritize US workers over their profits." This REI worker is a part of a group of workers that voted to unionize in May 2023, but they are still fighting to secure their first union contract. The motivation for forming unions is largely to ensure that companies act fairly and treat workers with respect. So they seek a position of power to be able to negotiate wages, benefits, workplace safety, etc. Reuters published a study in 2021 that explores the wage gap between unionized workers and non-unionized workers. It has widened significantly between 2013 and 2019, with unionized workers making significantly more money for the same work, retail work. However, there is often a lot of pushback from companies when their workers try to unionize, with some instances of intimidation and even wrongful termination. This year will be the 5th year that Amazon workers across 20 countries will go on strike from Black Friday to Cyber Monday using the slogan "Make Amazon Pay," which aims to hold Amazon accountable for labor abuses, environmental degradation, and threats to democracy. Christy Hoffman, General Secretary of UNI Global Union, says that Amazon has spent untold millions to stop workers from organizing. Although Amazon insists this is untrue, in Canada, Germany, the UK, and the US, Amazon has been accused of intimidating workers to prevent unionization efforts. A famous case in the US was at an Amazon warehouse in Alabama, which voted on unionizing in 2021. Prior to this vote, workers say Amazon held regular mandatory meetings, or information sessions, as Amazon put it, with presentations to convince them that a union is unnecessary. Those meetings had to stop by law as voting began, but the campaign continued in other ways. Amazon began to cover the warehouse all over with flyers sporting the slogan, "Do it without dues," implying that their stance against unionizing is because the unions just want to take the workers' hard-earned money in the form of dues. The union organizers pointed out that under Alabama's right-to-work laws, employees can opt out of paying union dues. And they emphasized that the point of the union is not to collect the dues, but to help Amazon staff get more sway over how they work, more say on safety measures and speed quotas, on how Amazon hires, disciplines, and fires people. Amazon also allegedly employed some other anti-union tactics that are debated by both sides, but ultimately, the large majority of workers at this warehouse voted not to unionize. US labor officials later ruled that Amazon improperly influenced the vote, specifically by having a new mailbox installed in a surveilled parking lot in front of the Amazon warehouse, surrounding it with an Amazon branded tent, and then using that as a mailbox for the voting ballots. This made workers feel that the company was monitoring and controlling the vote instead of the National Labor Relations Board. So because of this election interference, the board ruled that the workers would have a chance to vote again in 2022. But it was too close to call, with the validity of hundreds of the ballots being challenged by both Amazon and the union group. The workers are supposedly going to vote a third time, but the date remains unset as the legal process drags on and on. During the same time period, Amazon workers in Staten Island did vote yes for unionization in 2022, forming the first ever Amazon warehouse union in the US. Amazon then attempted to overturn this vote, but the National Labor Relations Board upheld the union. Still to this day, Amazon is questioning the validity of that election, emphasizing that they don't believe it was fair, legitimate, or representative of what the majority of their team wants. sounds familiar.
They cheated in the last election, and they're going to cheat in this election, but we're going to get them.
Because of this, Amazon is refusing to engage in negotiations with the newly formed union as they actively try to work towards getting them disbanded. I tell this whole long story because I think it's very important in understanding the nature of the relationship between employees and corporations. I think there can be downsides to forming a union, but I believe there are way more downsides to not having them. And it can set a dangerous precedent if we allow companies to get away with intimidating and coercing workers into not forming unions, because companies do hold a position of power over employees. To me, unionizing is a way for employees to also have some power. Circling back to the Black Friday and holiday shopping craze, it is true that companies like Amazon do provide lots of jobs, especially seasonal jobs during the holiday season, but it's also true that these employees get overworked simply due to the sheer volume of customers flocking to the stores and the huge influx of online orders that have to be fulfilled. According to a poll done by Monster, about 53% of workers say they have more stress than usual during the holiday season, and 61% say they're negatively affected during the holiday season. I do understand this is far from being a black and white issue, because at the end of the day, the managers have to keep the store running, or else they would be in trouble from their higher ups. In order to keep the store running, you have to hold staff accountable for showing up to their shifts, and maybe even having to deny time off requests. Managers also have to enforce productivity, even in the midst of the customer chaos, because if they don't, they will also be in trouble from their higher ups. Their higher ups are also answering to someone above them who is even farther removed from the hands-on customer service and retail experience, and their focus is profits, and so on and so forth up the chain of command. There's also increased stress on delivery drivers. The UPS alone reported that globally there would be over 32 million packages per day during the week between Black Friday and Cyber Monday. The consequences of so much consumption trickles down to the delivery drivers, who now might have to work longer hours and meet delivery quotas to deliver all these packages to the correct address in a reasonable amount of time. There are so many logistical challenges created by the sheer volume of consumption, just so that people can have things that have an 80% chance of getting thrown away. Crazy. All this to say, as consumers, it's important for us to consider these things when we go out holiday shopping. Don't go if you don't need to. Don't impulse buy. Don't be rude to retail workers and project your own holiday-related stress onto them. And don't be entitled to things or treatment, because it truly is a stressful and overwhelming time for everyone. And the last point I wanted to make about Black Friday is what I call pseudo sales. This is referencing the manipulative marketing tactics that many companies engage in around the holiday season, in which they advertise sales, but in reality the price has been cheaper or the same in the past. So the sale they advertise is actually not a discount, but to consumers it's perceived as one. A UK-based magazine called Which looked at 227 products from different companies and did a price analysis on them. They found that 92% of them were the same price or cheaper throughout the year before Black Friday. They also found 14 sales in which the higher price, the old price that they were stating, had not been charged a single time in the previous 12 months, implying that the so-called higher price, the old price, was either never actually listed or the product stays discounted all the time. Point being that these Black Friday deals are not always a money-saving opportunity like they market them to be, and they're also not as limited time as they claim. Another example is from a girl who examined Target's Black Friday deals a little closer. There's a website called camelcamelcamel.com, or CCC, that does price tracking for Amazon products. So let's take a look into some of Amazon's Black Friday / Cyber Monday deals. They're marketing these beats as being 50% off for Cyber Monday, priced at $100, down from $200. But according to CCC, it hasn't actually been $200 since July, and it was also down at $100 in early October and November. Then it jumped up to $130 right before Black Friday, and now is back at $100 as a Cyber Monday sale. Okay, this Keurig is being marketed as a 42% off Cyber Monday deal for $100, but according to CCC, it's been the same price since late October, and it was also this price in early October, likely for Amazon's Prime Day. My point in saying all this is to emphasize how engineered Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals are. They want you to see a big flashy sale sign that says limited time offer, so that you feel a sense of urgency to swipe your card and get the item for cheaper while you can. This urgency is not real because that item may very well be discounted in the future and or has also been discounted in the past. And in some cases, the discount, the sale, is literally just a word they slapped on that tag, like in the Target video, and the price has actually always been the same. Ultimately, the overconsumption induced by the holiday season is unnecessary and harmful for the environment, workers, and consumers. The environment gets a surplus of pollution in the form of material waste and greenhouse gas emissions. Workers face heightened stress and longer working days as they're already persisting in the fight for better treatment. And consumers face predatory marketing tactics that lead them to impulsively spend their money for things they probably don't need. And on a deeper level, consumers face the continued addictive temptation of materialism and consumerism, the never-ending need to have more things and the never-ending supply of those things. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear them. If you enjoyed, leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and turn on your post notifications so you can be notified every time I upload. I also have an Instagram account called @FightBigFashion where I make infographics and share resources talking all about the effects of the fast fashion industry and overconsumption. So definitely check that out if you're interested, and I will see you guys in the next video. Ciao!